Hi and welcome back to the channel, and thanks for joining us in this part 2 of our Blitzkrieg German build. I was asked a couple of questions on Facebook regarding the previous video where I talked about we had painted up 3 sections already, but I only shown one of them at the time, albeit I did show a couple of the NCOs and that. A couple of guys asked me and that would I show in the next video just the 3 sections all painted up and that. So here we have it. There's all 3 infantry sections that we'd obviously already done up prior to the last video. And as you'll see there, each section has their NCO out in front there. To the right is the machine gun element, and to the left there the rifle element for plain chain of command. But equally, obviously, it's 10-man section which you can use for bolt action. I did speak about last time about the flexibility by adding in another machine gun, and this could easily be done. As I said, all 3 of these. I'll put them over there so you can actually see they're also all done as well. By taking out a 2 riflemen from the rifle element for chain of command, you can add in another machine gun element and then move one of the riflemen out across into the other light machine gun section. So again, still giving you your 10-man sections, and also giving you that sort of bit of flexibility to make them sort of Panzer Grenadiers as opposed to normal sort of an infantry platoon. With bolt action, again, by taking out the 2 riflemen, I can put an extra light machine gun in there, giving me 2 light machine guns, again, sort of theoretically making them Panzer Grenadiers, albeit the bolt action does its army makeups differently and than what chain of command does. Personally, I like the idea of being able to have fire maneuver elements. I mean, you could replicate that in bolt action by, instead of having 10-man sections, keep building the base, which is 5-man sections, and then just have a rifle element and a machine gun element. I don't know. I mean, I suppose that's a way around it, but I prefer to have this section working as it should do. But so there we are. That's the infantry, bulk of the infantry all done. And as I said before, you may notice obviously a few bricks are dotted around and that on the bases and that. It's again representing the Germans sort of coming through sort of France and from Belgium and that. And across through the Ardennes and that through into France and that, and taking the outlying sort of farm areas and the rural areas before moving on to Dunkirk and obviously Calais and places like that. So there we have it. That's the infantry, main infantry platoon. Oh, sorry, 3 sections done for the platoon, and we'll move on to the next bits. So first up, the additions we've added into this platoon makeup is a 50mm mortar. Quite widely used in the early part of the war for the Germans, and certainly with chain of command and that, with the platoon build that we're making, this is obviously one of the platoon support assets that's available for the guys to use. So I'll just spin them up here a minute. Excuse fingers. Here we go. So as you can see there, it's 3 men. Now normally obviously in bolt action, I think it's 2 in the bolt action lists in the German army book, but in chain of command you have 3. The actual man obviously operating the mortar itself, and then you have 2 loaders. So obviously carrying all that ammunition and that, it needs more than 1 man. So yeah, on the bases, as I said before, you may notice in that, they'll say the odd bricks and that will come on the bases and that, just to again give it a little bit of depth and a bit of colour. And well, again, sort of give that sort of narrative that they are coming through those sort of outlying farm areas and that as they're coming through into France. So these are metal figures by Wargames, and they are in their Blitzkrieg German range. And as I say, most of the figures that I've got are from the Warlord range, and that there are some others vehicle-wise it's slightly different, but we'll come on to that when we get them done. So there we have it. That is the 50mm mortar team. So here we have now then, we have the anti-tank rifle team. And again, this is a part of the in chain of command, the platoons, not part integral to the platoon. I think some of them in the lists in the Blitzkrieg German book have them, but for our game, this one is going to be part of the support points that they can spend on adding this into their force. The British automatically come with the boys anti-tank rifle, but they have to be crewed from their actual integral from the men from their platoon. But with the Germans and that, this is a part of their support options that they can take, and certainly does again give it that. It's not brilliant. It's, you know, by this stage of the war and that, the anti-tank rifle really is is obsolete, but again, it sort of just add that little bit of flavour and that. And I've sort of put these guys on the base like this, so they're sort of like chatting and that, sort of more or less asking each other, "Craig, there's a Matilda coming down the road, guys. What are we going to do about it? This thing's going to bounce off. Like, you know, do we stay or do we go? You know, it's one of those sort of things." But again, bit of brick on the base. Again, keeping that theme going through. As I said, a lot of the infantry bases, like the 25mm rounds, I purposely sort of stayed away by putting the bricks on the base because I think it'd be a bit too much clutter. But when they start getting a bit bigger, and that certainly does add. And when the army's done, I think it will just set it off, and that'll give that little bit of contrast and that, and sort of give that, again, that little bit of flavour of that of the period that we're playing. So there we have it then, the anti-tank rifle team. So next up we have the command elements and that for this platoon build. The medic there, as you see, is coming round in front of us here. He will be a part of the support assets which you can spend your support points on to be able to obtain for the platoon. He's not integral of the platoon itself, he's just saying it's a support element, whereas the officer and the sergeant are both senior leaders. They are the command structure of the platoon. One thing I like about the medic in that is on his helmet, and obviously his left arm, as you see going round, the actual red cross insignia is moulded actually onto the figure. I mean, to me, I like things like that. It's a nice touch, and we don't have to mess about with transfers and that. So again, I like that. It's sort of, and it does stand out on the table. You'll also notice that as he comes round, all the piping on his epaulets and his collar, his insignia and his collar, has all been done again to match in with the rest of the figures and for the flavour of the uniform at the time. The sergeant here coming round. He is a different sergeant that comes in the support pack. I bought the support pack. I think it comes with the officer, the medic, the MG30 team, and an 80mm mortar team as well. Again, with bolt action, that you have the 80mm mortars on the table. In chain of command that you don't. So I'm going to do that up at a later date. The machine gun team will be done up it shortly, along with a couple of other bits. The sergeant figure that came in that box, I have an issue with Warlord Games. I think I've got quite a few. I don't know about you guys. I have quite a few of their metal figures where gun barrels are breaking off, and they're in the packaging broken off. That's what frustrates me. And I think what a part of it is, A, they're just slammed in the packets, and that doesn't help, and they're obviously transported and everything else bashing about. Secondly, I think that they're taking the figures out of the molds too early. They're too hot, and they're taking them out, and they're becoming sort of very bendy and pliable, and obviously become brittle when they hard. You know, computer's very hard and brittle when it dries, and it cools. Sorry. So I think that's also an issue. Is more about how they're processing and how they're doing it. I think that needs looking at, because I've had several in this last, I would say probably 2, maybe 3 years. I've had several figures like that now, and it is getting a bit frustrating. So I decided that I just threw the figure away, looked on their website and their early war Blitzkrieg era Germans, and I come across this SS officer. And obviously it's a separate head, and he comes with a peak cap. And I thought, well, I like the figure, but I don't want him with a peak cap, because obviously he'll look more like the senior leader. So because he's a separate head, I ordered the figure, I ditched the head, and I'd already bought the Pioneer box set, which had come with metal heads. So I nicked one of those, glued him into place, and I think, you know, that's my bit of kit bashing there, Steve. Glued him into place, and there we have it. And I think he sets off quite nicely in that, you know, with his smock on and that. So he looks like he's either stolen it from somewhere, or he's been an old campaigner, and he's been there, seen it and done it, and he's managed to acquire that from somewhere. And as I said, the officer is just the officer, comes with the normal Blitzkrieg set, and very nonchalant there with his hands behind his back, rubbing his hands behind his back, and that sort of directing, and that, as you would imagine him he would do, and that, leaving it down to his platoon sergeant to do all the work. But there we have it. So again, theme of the basin, and that's still carrying through with that sort of light brush, sort of open plains areas, sort of woodland and everything else. So that's and that sort of will carry on through the army, as you've noticed. So there we have it. That's the platoon command for the part 2 of this build. And so that's it for now, guys. Hopefully we'll have another video out to you shortly, once we finish off a couple of more sort of bases and bits and pieces. hope you're enjoying these little videos that we're doing, and want to say a huge thank you to the now over the 300 subscribers. I didn't really realise until the other day, until I flicked on, I've been busy with work, I flicked on and went, blimey, 300 subscribers, excellent, and I missed who it was. So whoever you are out there, thank you very much. I do appreciate, and I appreciate all our subscribers' support, as well as I appreciate anyone who's just clicked on to watch our videos. We are hugely sort of like, you know, humbled by all your reaction that you do and the support to us. And hopefully we can support you in the same ways by subscribing to you and watching your videos. So without further ado, stay safe guys, and until next time, hope you get some games in, and happy wargaming.